The Xbox 360. The one console that if you ask someone from the modern generation if they've heard of it, they'll either reply with, "Yeah bro, that thing is the best thing ever made, I love to play me some Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto with my friends. And I'm only 7. Or, the 360, don't tell me you still play with that previous generation rubbish. Go and get a life, you sad filthy peasant." Either that, or they're a Sony fanboy and will reply to you with a paragraph-long speech about how the PlayStation 3 is clearly superior. Although most of it's just profanity anyway, so who cares what they say. Personally, the Xbox 360 was the only 7th generation console that I could actually stand, as the Wii's controls and lack of awesome exclusives just didn't appeal to me. And the PS3's existence just didn't appeal to me. Oh, and also, on a side note, why isn't this console dead yet? I mean, come on, it's been going for almost 10 years now and they're still supporting and making games for this thing? I know that the PS2 was getting supported for 14 years, but at least the PS2 didn't have Sony supporting the PSN all the way through its life. Yes, Xbox Live for the 360 is still up and running. Even though the Xbox One came out, what was it now, 2 years ago? Something like that. But it just confuses me that they are... Wait. What's that say on the screen? "Chris, you'd better get on with the video or the head of the compute lab will get very mad at you." Nah, I'm sure he won't mind. Wait, he'll make me play... Okay, there's no need to go that far. I'll get on with it now. I still think the Xbox Live is stupid though.
Quiet as you can.
The Tyrannosaurus Rex Box 360 was the biggest console on the market in the late 2000 period, and even today it's doing quite well. Apart from in Japan. It was the console that brought our teenage generation such wonderful memories, such as playing one of the ridiculous amount of shooters for the console online with some friends, the death of the Sonic franchise, the resurrection of the Sonic franchise, the realization that game developers such as EA can, in fact, get away with releasing the same game every year and people like you watching this will still buy it, ignoring thousands of good underrated Sega titles because they prefer games like COD, and finally, listening to annoying 12-year-old kids play games that they are not legally old enough to be playing whilst saying racist and offensive terms more times than CJ from GTA San Andreas. The system was released in late 2005 for Japan, America and Europe, and Microsoft made some rather questionable choices for deciding the release dates for all the other regions, ranging from around 2005 to even 2011. Did you know that there were 3 different models for the system? That line sound familiar? Well, there actually is 3 models of the system. I wasn't trying to be funny for once. The first model was, well, I didn't like the way it looked. It was the 360 model that most people had, and it was by far the worst. The reason for this was because it was ever so slightly rushed by Microsoft to get it out by the end of 2005. In order to achieve this, they built it by grabbing the cheapest materials possible found on eBay and putting it all together with some Pritt stick. Thus the reason for this happening to a lot of the systems. Just a quick side note here, for something as deadly as the red ring of death, it's surprisingly easy to fix. The second model was more commonly known as the Xbox 360 Slim, and it's the one everyone seemed to like the most. Reason being, it had a 250 gig internal hard drive and it looked cool. Oh, and they fixed the red ring of death with this one too. Almost fixed it. The third model was pretty much the same as the second model, but it looked more like an Xbox One. Really, that's about it.
Can you sit to the left, Sam?
Yeah.
The Xbox 360 no-scope was incredibly powerful for the generation at least. Having a maximum of 320 gig for your choice of internal hard drive, this managed to beat the PlayStation's decent 250GB and completely demolish the Wii's petty 32GB SDHC card. The system was basically a console that tried to be a PC and didn't do too bad of a job of it, but the PC still remained the more powerful and superior system. But with a console coming from the same company that developed the Windows operating system, I wouldn't have expected much else. It has a memory size of 512 megabytes of RAM, and graphically, to avoid getting even more technical, I'll just say that it looks exactly like the Wii U. Most of the parts you'll find in a 360 you could also find in a PC as well. This part's for all you computer nerds out there. Such as the graphics processing, which is handled by the ATI Exynos, or the CPU, which is the triple-core Xenon IBM. Though it's not quite blast processing, this was pretty unique to have a console that functions almost exactly like a PC. Heck, look at the original Xbox. That one's even more similar to a PC. It also had this thing called Xbox Live, which I mentioned before. This was a built-in broadband adapter that allowed gamers to connect online and play games with other people around the world. Although, the 360's version of Xbox Live was literally just a slightly improved version of the original Xbox's Xbox Live, which was basically an improved version of the Dreamcast's Sega Net with less Ethernet cables and more paid subscriptions involved. The Pokédex Box 360 had an enormous library of games to choose from, even though most casual gamers in the UK only seem to choose 3 games to play, these being Call of Duty, FIFA, and now Grand Theft Auto 5. Although most of the games in the 360 are shooters or sports games, there are a few representatives from other game genres as well, such as Skyrim, Fable, and Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and... Is this game a platformer or a driving game? I'm not too sure, I guess we'll never know. But I'm not at all saying that all the shooters and sports games for the system are bad and overrated. No, not at all. In fact, I believe the Gears of War series is probably one of my favourite exclusives the system has to offer. But believe it or not, this is not all the system has to offer. No, not at all. Examples include The Elder Scrolls 4 and 5, Fallout, Mass Effect, Dead Space, Sega All-Stars, Afterburner Climax, Sega Rally, Sonic 06. Okay, that's enough Sega for now. Halo, Crackdown, Saints Row, Batman games, Assassin's Creed, and millions more. In the last episode of the Sega Mega Drive, I made a music section. Despite how much you all complained about how long it was, I thought it was nice to take a break and listen to some music. So I'm doing it again. On the 360, music quality was pretty much perfected at this moment, to the point where it actually sounds like music that you could hear on the radio if you tried. Here's some examples.
Got places to go, gotta follow my rainbow.
The Xbox, I ran out of names to call this thing because I'm stupid and this joke is getting stale already as it was getting stale in the last episode 360, had a pretty easy life once it was out. For some reason it's still alive today, unless you're watching this in 2017 or something, then it might be dead, but who knows. At the system's launch was really the only time it had any trouble competing with the other consoles, due to it being criticised for its technical problems, but we covered that earlier in the most melodramatic way possible. But after the 360 Slim model came out, it had a pretty easy life, selling millions of units and being well recognised by the public due to its popularity. To be honest, it is pretty impressive for a console to last so long that it competes with its replacement next-gen console. I think that's only happened 3 times, but usually because the replacement console was deemed not as good as the old one. Cough cough, Sega Saturn. But in this instance, both the Xbox One and the 360 are pretty good consoles, to the point that I rate them both very highly in my top 10 consoles of all time. Probably under the Dreamcast somewhere, but above the GameCube. Well, that's about all I have time for, so if you'll excuse me, I'll be taking my leave. Oh, and at least try to have a Merry Christmas. Bye.